Good evening, everybody. Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 30. Thank you for tuning in. We know we're into week 2 of the NFL now, so I don't blame you if you're watching Monday Night Football instead of me, but you can always go back and watch after the game's over or later on in the week, and that's one of the reasons that we save these. We're actually working on our YouTube channel to get all of these cataloged there, where you can go back and watch them on YouTube if you have friends that don't have Facebook. And we got some cool vintage CSI videos that Tim Truex did for us a number of years ago that we'll get on there, as well as all the new content that we're creating. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Last Friday I headed to Terre Haute for the Hurtubise Classic National Sprint Car Race. Was there helping customers. Robert Ballou set quick time with our shocks there and ran second in the feature. I took Saturday off to take Hudson BMX racing, but Sam and Trevor went to Hobstop for us, delivered some shocks that we stayed up late after Terre Haute tuning up and fixing, and delivered some parts to customers there, while Jake was at Fremont with Hunter Schoenberg. So as the season's winding down, we're still getting out and helping customers. And this weekend is a big one for us. It's pretty much every market that we're in, with the exception of mini sprints and micro sprints. But we'll have quarter midgets, sprint cars, wing and non-wing, and silver crown, all at Eldora for 4 crown. So that's a big one for us. We'll be headed over there Friday morning. I think pretty much our whole staff will be there in some capacity at that event. So looking forward to that one. So before we jump into the monotube versus twin tube debate, wanted to share a little bit with you guys. So gosh, I guess it's been 30 weeks ago now we started Monday Morning Quarterback. It was an idea I got after reading a book that maybe this was a way we could add some value to our customers. And it started off as something really small, and now it consumes a good portion of my Mondays, as I'm trying to provide good content for you guys and something that actually has real value and you can learn from. And I'm certainly enjoying doing that for you guys, and we're trying to find other ways that we can continue to reach out to our customers and anybody in these markets, and help share the knowledge that we've acquired over decades of working at different levels of the sport. But one of the things that I continuously get feedback on is, people call or email, hey, we love Monday Morning Quarterback, we love what you're doing, we would love to get on board with CSI, but we've already invested in another brand of shocks. Totally understandable. And if that's you, we hope you continue listening, because we're here for not only our customers, but anybody we can help. As I've thought about that and been brainstorming, trying to come up with a way how we could help those people, we decided a trade-in program was probably going to be the most effective way for us to maybe get some new people on board with our products. So tomorrow we're going to roll out a trade-in program that's really simple, just like trading your car in. So any shock will have a value, and we will use that towards the purchase of a new set of shocks. So you're going to simply email me a picture of what you got and what you're looking at as far as a new CSI shock package, and we'll email back with a quote, the trade-in value that we're willing to give you for your shocks, and then what the new package will look like as far as a cost. So we're going to do it for a limited time. I believe the program runs through the end of November, and the reason for that is we get extremely busy December, January, and it doesn't seem like we slow back down until this time next year. So we're going to do the trade-in thing for a short time and see how it goes, and we might roll it out again if it's successful and it works good and we're able to get some new customers. We are going to refurbish the shocks that get traded in if it's something we work on, and if it's something we don't, we'll probably eBay it or pitch it depending on the condition of it. So So we're excited about that. We're going to roll that out on social media tomorrow, but wanted to let you guys know about that first. So anybody that's interested in switching to CSI or upgrading your current CSI shock package, I should mention that if you have like old RS12s and you're wanting to get the latest greatest, you can trade in older CSI shocks as well for new. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. All right, we'll dive into the nuts and bolts and the reason you're tuned in. Monotube versus twin tube. It's a hotly discussed debate, and there's a reason that we manufacture both, because I feel there's a time and a place for both, and there's certain race cars that like a twin tube, certain race cars that like a gas, and then there's just some applications where one just fits better on the race car than the other, and it seems to be a benefit. So I got some parts that I brought in from out in the shop, and so this is what our RS15 twin tube looks like. This is a small body. Everything's kind of loosely assembled. So inside the twin tube shock is this honed steel sleeve, okay? And so twin tube simply is two tubes. So you have your outer body and tube, and then you have the inner tube that goes in there with a gas bag around it, okay? And this is what the gas bag looks like. So it technical difficulties. It's like we had an earthquake. Sorry, guys. Okay, sorry about that. I just have my phone hooked to the computer and it fell down. Phone down. Okay, so the gas bag wraps around the pressure tube and then goes inside the body, okay? There's a base valve that goes in there, etc. So the reason for the two tubes and the gas bag is the gas bag takes up a specific volume in the shock, so it doesn't hydraulic as it compresses. As it compresses, the gas bag compresses, and that way the shock has the correct volume and we don't run into a hydraulicing issue, or we don't have enough oil volume in the shock, okay? As I get ready to show you the twin tube, one common mistake or misunderstanding, let me try to level that back out without dropping it, we hear from customers is they think a monotube or a gas shock, commonly referred to as a gas shock, they think this is all air or nitrogen, and it's not. This whole section here is all gas, and then there's a divider piston in here, and this portion is nitrogen. So there's only just a little bit of nitrogen in the shock, okay? There's nitrogen in here as well. So a twin tube has nitrogen and oil, a monotube has nitrogen and oil. The biggest difference is a monotube, you can adjust the amount of nitrogen you have in your shock, where in a twin tube, it's sealed in this gas bag, we can't adjust it, okay? The other main difference is on a monotube shock, the piston rides in this main outer body. So a rock ding, any interference in suspension moving, indent this body. Now as that piston goes up and down in the cylinder, it'll hit that dent and cause further damage. The car's not going to handle right because it's going to obviously hit a spot where it wants to lock up in the shock, break the piston, break shims, etc. Where the twin tube, you can get some dents and dings in this, as long as it doesn't pop the gas bag or dent in so far that it gets to this tube. Most of the time you're okay. So shock cover's a necessity on a monotube because you want to keep anything from denting that body and hurting the shock. On a twin tube we recommend them just to keep your shocks looking nice, but it's not necessarily as big of an issue as it is on the monotube shock. Okay, other big differences. A twin tube shock, generally speaking, will build more heat than a monotube shock. So if we have them valved, very similar, and we run them on the dyno for a set period of time, a twin tube will get hotter. And the reason it's going to get hotter is the steel tube obviously doesn't dissipate heat as well as aluminum, and you have more friction. So you have this gas bag opening and closing. On the race car, the air isn't getting directly to the main outer tube where the oil is. And so there's a lot of other things going on in that twin tube that creates more heat. Heat creates fade. Doesn't matter if you put the best oil money can buy in there, you run a thin oil, at some point heat is going to reduce viscosity, which will cause fade and make your shocks softer. Okay, I've told you all these bad things about twin tubes. Why do we run twin tubes? A twin tube shock is very user friendly as far as you don't have to worry about setting your gas pressure when you get to the racetrack. And there's certain applications where a twin tube just fits better. A junior sprint comes to mind. We run a 5-inch twin tube. Now, a 5-inch gas shock from most manufacturers, and it does vary, will be longer than a 5-inch twin tube. How is that, you ask? Well, that 5-inch number is just the amount of travel available. So the overall length of the shock is determined by a lot of factors. If we need to get 5 inches of travel and you have a big base valve and we still need to get 5 inches of travel, well, now your body's longer. So on our shocks, it's about 3/4 of an inch longer, eye to eye, full extension, with comparing a 5-inch twin tube to a 5-inch gas. The gas or the monotube is about 3/4 of an inch longer. So there's just some applications where the twin tube just fits better. Left rear of a wing sprint car, where you're trying so hard to get the right bump rubber gap, have the shock long enough where it's not topping out, or you don't have to unhook it when you block the car, because that's a pain. But we need to make sure we don't have the body so tall that we can't get the bump rubber height we want. Commonly, we will run like a 7-inch body with an 8-inch shaft in the monotube or the gas shock, same thing, to get the bump rubber gap we want. Where a twin tube, it's shorter, it just fits better. A midget, we typically run twin tubes on a midget with a gas right rear. The twin tubes on the midget just seem to work good. It's a short wheelbase car. Gas shocks tend to make them real flighty on the front end, bouncy, and then also if you like running a helper spring setup, it's much easier to do on a twin tube because you have more room. This is a smooth body, but you have more room on the body to get your ride height adjuster up, where on the monotube you run out because you have all this that you can't get that ride height adjuster up. So coil front, sometimes a twin tube just mounts up better, and on a midget it actually seems to work better than a gas shock. Now there are some guys that run gas all the way around. I know Keith Kuhn's cars, they run all gas. However, the majority of our customers are still running twin tubes. We've tried gas. The twin tubes just seem to fit better for our package and our customers. If somebody wants gas, we'll certainly build that. We have built a few sets. But now, the monotube. A lot of people will say, well, a twin tube's got more grip. Some of that is not accurate. When monotube shocks first came into the market, sprint car midget market, they weren't base valve shocks. So that'll be a whole nother topic. I don't want to dig too deep into that. But you had to run a lot of gas pressure in them, and I mean a lot. They had very small gas chambers, and you had to run 80 to 100 pounds to prevent cavitation. So what that would do is the shock would have such a rising gas rate as it traveled that it would often shear the tire loose. So you would lose grip in the slick. So some people have it in their head, gas shocks don't make grip in the slick. The modern gas shock that most every manufacturer is making with a base valve, if tuned right, pressure balanced right, it'll make the same amount of grip as your best twin tube shock. Makes very good grip. A monotube has better control. And what I mean by that is when you bang into the cushion, if the cars are bouncing, a monotube shock, you can control that better because you can increase the gas pressure, which makes the shock react quicker, and it will work better on rough racetracks or tracks with a big curb. You can't adjust the pressure in this gas bag. As far as durability, typically a monotube shock is a little more durable than a twin tube. You can pop these gas bags if you see an extremely high velocity. If you wheelied up and landed back on the wheels hard, you can pop this gas bag. If you biked and landed hard, you could pop the gas bag. You can bend shims in a gas shock if you do those things, but typically speaking, gas shock or monotube shock is a little more robust than a twin tube. So that kind of covers the main design differences between the two. I'll do another segment, I don't know if it'll be next week or further into the fall, but we'll go really deep into the design improvements on a gas shock, and especially as we're getting ready to roll out some new models at PRI, we'll go into some design differences, some things that are making modern day gas shocks, whether it's from us or any of our competitors, so much better than they were 10 years ago. I believe it was Colin Davies earlier asked, how are we going to handle trade-ins overseas? You will have to pay the shipping to us. So we would still take your trade-in, but you would have to pay the shipping to get those to us if you wanted to trade them in. That's really the only way we can do the overseas trade-ins. Anybody that's tuned in have questions regarding monotube or twin tube shocks, what maybe you think is best for your application, or any questions that have popped up throughout the course of racing last weekend? While the phone is standing and it's not flipping off the back of my computer, we'll answer questions. We certainly appreciate all you guys tuning in each week. Makes it worth it as we're preparing to bring you good content each week. Also, if there's something that you want to see us discuss in depth, comment here, shoot me a private message, shoot me an email. We're doing this show for you guys, so let us know what you'd like. Chris Clark, best slick package for a wing sprint car. So if the tracks are staying smooth where you're running, they're smooth and slick, I believe our 18 LT, the single or double adjustable large body twin tube version, is a great option for you. We can flow a lot of fluid through that large body twin tube shock. It makes a good amount of grip, and now that we've went to the deflective disc design, we've improved the control on that shock versus our 15 LT. Now, if you're racing at a place that gets really rough or choppy or builds a curb, you might want to run those shocks with a gas right rear or run all gas shocks. So it kind of depends on how your track plays out. So Eric, we don't change out the different pressured gas bags, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, we can't put much more pressure in it than that's already in it. It has 3 to 4 psi in it because we won't be able to fit it in the shock, okay? And if we go less, then we can put too much oil in and we'll run into a hydraulicing issue. So it's just one pressure. Kylie, what shocks are you taking in for trade? Anything. Any shock, unbolted off your tow vehicle. Any shock's got a value, and we will assess it and give you a trade-in value for it. Andy, Sport Mod. I really think you need a monotube shock in the Sport Mod. Those cars weigh so much and they have so much leverage. I just think you're going to get better control out of a monotube shock. So that's what I would recommend, period, for any type of modified or dirt late model. All right. Steven, yeah, when you're setting your gas pressures, we always recommend to go 3 to 5 psi higher. So when you take the gauge off, you're right where you need to be. So Tyler, getting a monotube to feel like a twin tube. When you would set like our gas shocks for a slick track condition, and we would go down to like 10 psi in them, there's essentially the same amount of rod pressure as a twin tube, and they should feel very, very similar. So with the size gas chamber we run, if you set, like, say, a right rear shock to 10 psi and you compress it all the way in, it's not going to shoot back out. It has essentially under 1 pound of rod pressure. So I think you would get a very, very similar feel to a twin tube. RJ, I'm going to assume you're talking about a non-wing sprint car. Typically we're starting at 60 psi and then going down to 25 or so when it gets slick. Okay. Corey, what type of chassis do you have as far as a micro? The reason I ask, most all of our customers with Jacob's Ladder cars, a D1, PMP, Pace, Edge, they're all running monotube. Factor 1 runs twin tubes and a monotube right rear typically. Concept's running twin tubes. And a lot of this is the preference of the manufacturer and how we've developed the shock package for their chassis. So you're running a Hyper. Most of our Hyper customers are running the monotube shock. Seems to work the best for what they've got going on, and we do have some good packages for a Hyper. Nathan, great question. The gas pressure should always be set at full extension. So you don't have to necessarily take the shock off the car, but you need to take one corner of it off. So maybe undo the top at the shock tower and fully extend the shock and set the pressure there. The reason for that is you're setting the pressure at what we would call the home position. So the divider piston at full extension is all the way down and you have the full gas chamber, and that's what you're setting it at. If the shock's on the car and it's partially compressed, that divider piston will be partially up in the bore. Now your gas chamber volume is smaller, and when you set the pressure, it could be different every time depending on where that divider piston is, how much the shock is compressed. All right, so good choice to always set it fully extended. Eric Long, who's your money on for the Outlaw Nationals at Port City? Someone on CSI Shocks, I hope. Got a lot of good customers in the Tulsa area. Jake Mosley's built a bunch of Faro cars that run our shocks. Our buddies over there at Driven Midwest got a lot of D1 cars in that area with our shocks. And Jimbo and Sherry at Factor 1 were some of the first to believe in our product, and they've been running our shocks since 2010. So super cool, all the support we get in Tulsa. That's an event we will be at next year with our shock trailer. Just didn't make sense to make the haul this year without the trailer. But we are going to the Show Me in a couple weeks. So that'll be a micro race we're looking forward to going to. So yeah, good luck to everybody at the Outlaw Nationals at Port City. Mark, yeah, you can just email me for trade-in. You can send a picture of the shocks you're wanting to trade in. Or if you have any questions, you can shoot me a private message. I'm on here. Garrett Andrews, I think I'm friends with most of you. If I'm not, send me a friend request, because I think Facebook's bad about hiding messages if the person's not your friend. I've stumbled upon messages that people have sent me a week prior because they weren't my friends, so it hides it. You're all my friends, so add me as a friend, send me a question if you got it. Daniel, double adjustable on a midget, heavy rough track. We'd run 60 to start, Daniel, for most heavy rough tracks. There has been instances where we've ran up to 80 when the track's really choppy. The big thing I tell all of our midget customers is make sure you got plenty of air pressure in that right rear tire. The sidewall on a midget is so floppy, man, if you don't have 12 pounds of air in that thing when it's hooked up and heavy, it doesn't matter how stiff your dampening is on the shock, how much gas pressure you have in your shock, you're going to get some bounce. So help stiffen up the overall spring rate of that corner by going up on air pressure in your tire as well. It's really bad on a midget. It's got a super tall sidewall, and the construction of it's really soft. So, any other questions tonight before I sign off? I apologize for the technical difficulty earlier when I pitched my phone off the back of my computer. That's the thing with going live. I can't edit that out, so you all got to see it firsthand. All right, well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic week. Good luck wherever you're racing, and if I missed your question or you watch this after the fact, shoot me a message and be happy to answer it for you guys. Thank you.